getting rid of natural waste. So coming down from the monastery, it's piped, waste is piped to a septic tank, which is between here and the monastery. The solid matter sinks to the bottom, and the liquid matter comes down through the pipe and in through this pipe here into the reed bed.
Right, we'll go and have a look at this.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got yellow irises here and reeds over there.
It's actually quite a small area, isn't it? And it must be beautifully colourful with the irises.
Well,
and
it is when they're in flower. Certainly when they're in flower. The reeds over there are Phragmites, and you'll often get the yellow irises and the Phragmites planted together. And the idea is that oxygen is absorbed through the leaves of the Phragmites, down through the stems and into the roots. And the root system, because of this oxygen, it's vital for certain bacteria called aerobic bacteria. And these absolutely love to eat absolutely anything. They can eat almost anything. So they're all down there waiting, to do their aerobics. And I love this idea of bacteria sort of, oh, okay, here we come, right now. Munch. So there they are, and they transform this waste into water, particularly sulfate and CO2 and biomass, which are microorganisms. So it's sort of purifying this stuff. And the waste then goes down into the next reed bed, which carries on this tradition, purifies it even more. Then it travels out through what's called a French drain. And it's nothing to do with France. It's a special kind of drain, which, believe it or not, has holes in it. There's several kinds of French drains. It could be a trench with stones in it, through which liquid can pass through easily. But we've got a pipe with holes in it. And this pipe extends from the end of here right out 50 metres in that direction, and then comes back again 50 metres.
Right.
So that displaces the purified water into the ground, and it's not going to do any harm to the soil.
So it just sort of slopes away gently
right.
down
That's
there.
Right. Into the gill, which is over there.
So would the alternative would have been, if you didn't have this, just going on to the main?
Yeah, that's right. But this is becoming more and more popular because it's not going to do any damage to the environment. In fact, it increases wildlife, which...
yes, I was going to say...
our frogs come down here.
Do they?
Yes, they come from our dew pond up there, where they lay the frog spawn, and hop down here. And toads too.
The birds love it, don't they?
Birds love it.
And it's totally maintenance free? Do you have to do anything?
Well, we had to weed it.
But now that it's established, do you have to do anything at all?
Well, apart from weeding it. We empty the septic tank twice a year.
Right.
That has to be emptied. But apart from that, it's pretty much maintenance.
Monitored, doesn't it?
And we monitor it, of course. Yes. There's no water flowing into it. There's no water flowing out of it. But it's just a natural
it must
space
have must have a clay fan, but
I
wouldn't like to say whether it's how natural it is or whether it's enhanced.
Because I certainly heard that it was natural, and
I think
they're very ancient systems.
In porous areas, the farmers would have tried as possible to capitalise on where there was clay and to keep it keep it from being grassed over, keep it from being forested over. That's right. As natural things. So it may be sort of semi-natural.
Yes.
So when was this uncovered? Was it?
Oh, it's before we came.
Before, right.
Some years ago now.
So is it weeded around the outside as well to keep anything coming in?
It's not actually. It's like that.
And again, a sort of habitat for the frogs?
Indeed, frogs lay their frog spawn here.
Oh, lovely.
And then hop down to the reed beds. Birds drink. Swallows swoop over, and you can see them swooping over and gathering up the water in their beaks and flying off. Finches and
Oh, I can just
robins,
imagine on a summer's
blackbirds.
evening how beautifully peaceful it must be here.
Oh, it is, and the birds gather around in the trees. You hear them singing.
That's our cemetery over there. We've done a bit of tree planting to try and make a screen between this more quiet recreational area for guests and community, and then the nuns' cemetery.
Right.
Yeah.
How does this compare to where you were previously in Worcestershire, in terms of the landscape and?
The landscape. Well, there's certainly more views than we had in Worcester.
Well, we were on the Severn Plain, really, in a valley. It was very beautiful. Had about 17 acres of mixed woodland, quite an extensive pond, much bigger than this one.
Right.
Some arable area, an orchard, very ancient orchard, and very mixed. For a small area of 17 acres, it was very beautiful, wasn't it?
It was very beautiful.
But more like a garden or a mixed market garden than this is. It gives a sense of sort of wildness and space up here. It's much bigger. We've got 56 acres here, so it's much bigger, and we don't have to maintain it. The sheep do a lot of the work that we had to do with
Maintenance friendly.
Yeah, so it's much easier to maintain, paradoxically, even though it's much bigger.
Right.
Well, we have no high walls, for instance, so the view is much wider and far than it was in your place.
So from the tower down there, you did have a lovely view of the Malverns and a nice.
Well, if you had the energy to climb
climb
up to the tower,
you could
the top of the bell tower.
Panoramic view there. So,
Yeah. This is where the wood chip is delivered. A huge lorry comes in, and these lids are pulled across this way and that way, and there's a big pit, and the lorry tips it all into there, and it goes right down underground. When the monastery was being built, we could watch this being constructed, and there was a huge pit here, and it was designed for the wood chip, so it's sort of state-of-the-art wood chip. People who come here to look at it, who know about wood chip, sometimes they say we're very lucky because we have space down there. I'll show you in a minute. Whereas some places have nowhere to move around, it's very cramped. But this was built specially for this sort of fuel. We had oil-fired boilers in the old place, and that was terribly, terribly expensive. Although this was quite expensive to install, it certainly pays for itself pretty quickly, because the only fuel is wood chip.
locally sourced.
Absolutely.
Yes, I was going to ask that.
Locally
Whereabouts?
sourced.
Do you know where it comes from?
Not far.
It's
That's
close
okay.
to.
Yeah.
It's close to.
Yeah.
And that's
And
all
that's
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of that. You can get what's called wood chip pellets, which are standard sized wood chips, which don't clog up the system. But they're much more expensive to buy, and they're also less eco-friendly in making them. So that's why we've gone for this. The snag about these is that if you get something which hasn't been cut properly, you get a twig, that can clog up the chute and make the whole thing shut down, and you have to go down.
Julian has to go.
Oh, right.
Oh,
How
dear.
often does that
Well,
happen?
Too often sometimes, especially in the winter time when it's cold and in the middle of the night. And somebody comes along and says, the heating's off! There's no
And
hot
it's always
water.
you, is it? Sister
It's
Julian?
me! I've my coat on, I can't walk about here down the stairs.
Well, that's what comes of being a technical expert, you
Oh, I'm
see.
a technical expert. But now, recently, we had a little light installed
Oh, yes.
in front of the door here, which goes on
Okay.
when everything stops. Thank
Right.
God. So that means that if it stops, we know immediately, instead of having to wait for everything to shut down and people freeze. So then they can go down and sort it out.
But on the whole, it's very
on the whole,
efficient,
no,
isn't it?
on the
I
whole,
mean,
it's very efficient.
Extremely warm. That is one big difference from down there. You know, it was the coldest place in the universe. We had to put so many layers on in winter. We all looked about 20 stone. But now you can go around in just a simple habit, being quite comfortable. It's dry and warm.
And the lovely smell of
Oh, the
wood
lovely
chip
smell.
smoke,
Yeah, it's
Coming out of
presumably.
there. It's lovely. Yeah, it's not coming
Yeah.
out at the moment. It does sometimes. Yeah.
So much nicer than the fumes from oil.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We also have a gas system backup, and in the winter and in the summertime we turn all this off
Yes.
and go on to just gas, and that just heats the water.
And there's
Because you see the wood
pipe
chip
gas
he-
into here, is there? Or is it?
the gas comes from here.
Oh, okay. Yes, you've got gas.
Propane.
Yeah.
Those are propane.
Okay.
But the solar panels, which are on the very top of the roof, they heat the water to a certain degree, so it doesn't have to start from scratch, doesn't it?
Something from NASA
It
headquarters,
is, isn't it?
doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, it's all labelled, as you can see. So
My goodness.
that all those instructions here will refer to this and also the panel downstairs. It's computerised, so the little screen here will tell you sometimes if there's anything wrong. Also, of course, if you notice a fault immediately if the red light goes on, that's not good news if one of these goes on.
But you say actually it's doing very well.
It is actually. You know, you stroke it.
And look at all this pipe work.
That's right. Yes.
And that's all right to be fluttering like that. That's not a bad sign.
No, I don't think so.
For me, that would be worrying, but
I think it's just a general sort of hum.
yeah, no, it's
There's a
cool.
motor here which is making it do that. But when people so now you can see we've just been up there.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh goodness me.
now that's making a healthy noise. I'll show
Good.
you. I'll show you the pit where the wood chip is in a sec. But this is the chute that comes from next door, where all of that tons of wood chip is, and
Yeah.
it all comes through here, along here, down here, and in here. And this is, I won't open it, the red hot furnace in here.
Okay, no, don't open it. It's
And
got a
that's
danger
where it's all
sign.
being burnt in here.
Okay.
And once a week it has to be cleaned. So Tony and I come down, put on old clothes, and we have to wear masks. These
Yep.
masks
Yep.
because
it produces
because
ash.
of the ash.
Yeah.
We have to undo these bolts and have to get down and scrape out the ash from here. Undo this and push undo it first and push the ash into the grate, and that comes down, and then you get it out here with these things. Now so these are quite heavy, so you can imagine.
Yeah.
You have to get down and push there, and then there's a grate at the back that you have to pull the residue forward into the grate. And it goes down there. And you have to scrape it out.
So how much? You're saying only once a week.
Once a week.
So how much ash do you
And then down
produce?
here there's a big tray. So those have to be unscrewed. And there's a red hot tray. Oh, you have to turn it off first for a couple of hours before you do all this.
Oh, okay.
And then pull that out, and then Tony usually takes that upstairs and empties it into a metal dustbin for it to cool. Here it is, you see, complete these off.
Wow.
And we've just had a full load, and it goes right down into the ground.
Right.
So you can't, it's obviously got a full load.
Smells.
So just the other side of this concrete are those, what do you call them, shutters that you pull backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And to empty the wood chip. So you can see now, for instance, something like maybe these things if you get a couple of those together, that might clog up the system. Sometimes the people who chop these, who cut the wood chip, if the blade is not sharp enough, then it doesn't chop them enough, small enough. That's about
ideal.
Right. That's ideal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there
So how often do you have a delivery? You know, how long does it last
Well, if
for?
it's when it's in full bloom, so to speak, in full use, I suppose about once every 2 or 3 weeks.
All right. How many tons do you know?
I'm not sure of the weight. But it's
So it's one lorry load, presumably.
one huge lorry load.
One huge lorry load every 2 or 3 weeks.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there we are.
Very impressive. And a lot more. I mean, once you've got over the capital costs,
Yeah.
actually
a huge
lot more economical than oil could ever be.
You see, and when you've got sustainable forests as well, like we have here, it means that you're not really using up precious resources that can't be replaced, because once those trees have been felled, more are going to be planted.
Yep.
and that
Yeah.
just goes on and on,
Yeah.
which helps the environment and helps the animals and helps everybody and helps us too.
Yeah.
So the more that we can use these, that's why we wanted to use all these eco-friendly systems, so that it's not going to be a drain on precious resources like coal or oil, which are going to run out one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just really are making use of the Earth's resources in a friendly.
And you're so lucky
Anyway.
because you've got forestry all around
Well, that's
you
right.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're busy planting trees as
Yeah,
well.
Yeah.
So we have 3 compost heaps here on the go, and we supplement these with bokashi composting, which we do in the kitchen, because obviously in the winter the decomposition rates are very slow, so it needs the bokashi.
Tell me what that is, because I've not heard that term. Sorry.
I believe it started in Japan, Japanese, but where obviously many of them live in high-rise buildings, very packed in, haven't got gardens or whatever, but still want to be green. So you add to your kitchen waste some kind of enzyme, some kind of speeder upper of the decomposition rate, and it breaks it down, makes it non-smelly and safe and whatever. So you can do indoor composting through the winter. But what we do also is add that, add the bokashi waste. It takes about a fortnight to cook, as it were. We add it then to ordinary veg stuff and so on, and it helps to speed things up. And in the winter, when it's absolutely frozen and nothing moves, we can still go on composting indoors and save the bokashi up over the winter. So, it's very good. We've only tried it since we've been up here, but
It seems to be working. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
And so you were just saying me a little bit earlier on about the sort of longer term aim is to be growing your own vegetables.
We'd like to get more. The soil is very rocky where we are, and not very rich. Mostly sandstones and whatever, so it's going to need a lot of improving. But we've been pleased with the little experiments we've done along here. We've got some herb plants growing and bushes and shrubs and so on. So we hope to extend that in time and have some more.
Did you do that in your previous location in Worcestershire? Did you have vegetable gardens?
In the past, when I entered, and probably even more so when Julian came, we were practically self-sufficient. That was 30 years ago.
30 years when I entered 33 years ago.
Everything, fruit, veg,
potatoes, onions.
the lot. But
vegetables.
gradually over the years, as numbers shrank and we needed more people inside to look after more elderly sisters and whatever, that side of it shrank too, which again was a part of the impetus behind the move, that we wanted to get back to that more in an area that we could control. So by making the house smaller, less area to clean, less to look after, we hope it's going to release up more labour to do these some more sort of outdoor things.
And the labour is all done, apart from one gardener, is done by yourselves.
Yes, we do all the cooking ourselves.
Cleaning and washing. I'm one of the cooks.
Making our
And
own
the tea.
clothes and everything.
We have various arts and crafts, weaving.
But with an ageing population, does that mean that more and more falls onto your shoulders as the?
We've got some young ones as well, and we've
Yes.
got quite a good age spread, and some younger people interested visiting who hopefully will join us in the next few years. So, we're pretty lucky. We've got 2 in their 80s, but then all the way down. haven't we?
Yes, there's sisters in all the decades down to 30s.
30s.
Just
in the 30s. Yeah.
So you got.
There's a healthy interest in monastic life at the moment.
Why do you think that is?
I think monastic life, as opposed to what's called the apostolic life, as sisters work outside the monastery, will always remain. It has a very structured way of life, going way back to centuries, and the call to our way of life, which is simply to prayer first and foremost, that comes first, and whatever work we do is secondary, supports that prayer life. And that's why we're here. And there will always be people called to that. Always be people called to a life of prayer in community. Living together in common and sharing everything together in one place.
But do you think it's a reflection of today's society and the stresses and the strains of today's society, particularly as we're going into potentially really difficult times, that the life that you lead is and the sustainability that we've been discussing about actually is becoming more attractive? Do you see that as a development in the years ahead, or?
Yes, I think so. I think people are getting fed up with consumerism, individualism, and sort of allowing people out there. We live in community. That's the basis of our life together, doing something together for God. And in creation with the environment, young people are certainly interested in that. It's not new to us. We follow a rule that goes back to the 6th century. We sing the Psalms of God's creation every day, and this whole being close to the earth has always been part of our Benedictine heritage.
Let's do the fantastic panorama you have from here. Isn't it amazing? What are the furthest points that you can see from here?
You can see down to Ferry Bridge on a good day. Down to the power stations sort of mark the distance. They're a bit hazy today, but on a clear day you can see down to Ferry Bridge.
So here we have a flat roof.
Yeah,
with
sedum. There's two of these. This one and that opposite one has sedum on it too.
So what does the sedum roof do?
Well, it's a sort of it provides a microclimate for all birds and insects.
It helps with the insulation, doesn't it? As well?
Yes, it helps insulation and purifies the air. And the leaves of the sedum, they're water succulent plants. They absorb water, particularly 400 types of sedum. I don't know what this type is, but
Sedum monasticum.
Is it?
No.
That would be most appropriate,
Sedum
wouldn't it?
monasticum. Well,
It's a special species for yourselves.
Sedum monasticum. That's right. Yeah.
So because of its water retaining properties, it helps with the runoff. I think too. Especially on a flat roof.
Yes.
It helps with the drainage.
Yes.
And it just looks very attractive in this
does.
thing. I mean, it's dying back a bit now, but it's pink and yellow, isn't it? In the spring, it's lovely.
It protects the roof as well.
So did you see it when they constructed it? What's underneath it? Is it just a layer of soil, or?
There's a sort of fine, like a kind of matting underneath to hold the soil, is that right?
Yes, I haven't seen it myself, I must admit. I haven't seen what's underneath, but there's probably a drainage area, a sort of filter underneath, which helps the runoff of the water and prevents it from seeping through to the building itself.
So the only two flat roofs, this one and that one over there.
And this one above us. This is the
And that's sedum as well, is it?
No, that's where the
the
solar panels are up there. Yeah.
Right.
But you get quite a good view of the water harvesting system from images. There's one element though that, and I totally agree with that part that Julian said, but there's one part of our old monastery which they've incorporated up here, because it wasn't all dark. The cloisters that we had down there, designed by Pugin, were absolutely beautiful. I can show you some photos when we get down. And they were full of light. They were just like heaven on earth. And you had these marvellous vistas. You could stand at one end of the cloister and look down a straight vista to the other end, another door with light streaming in. And as soon as we got here, and the day we moved, it was a very emotional sort of day, and it was a bit of a grey day, and we had a long journey, and there were all these photographers when we arrived. But as soon as we got inside the monastery and saw what they'd managed to do with the cloister here, I felt completely at home, because they'd recaptured that wonderful sense of the Pugin light in this new place. And so if you stand, if you stand at one point in the monastery here, straight down this cloister, and then straight down where the cells are, where the door opens, they've recaptured it in this modern idiom. So for me that was absolute.
And that was the day that you moved in. You hadn't had a sense of that
No,
beforehand.
I didn't know how it was going to work. I mean, it looked all right on the plan, but I hadn't realised what they'd picked up in that 24 hours or whatever it was, 48 hours that they slept.
So you're really happy?
Yes, I'm very happy. I feel privileged to have lived in two such beautiful buildings, so different, and yet with a sort of unity about them that matches our life, as we were describing before. They both, that monastery down there was purpose-built too in the 19th century. It wasn't an adapted country house, it was purpose-built, and it suited its purpose beautifully for 170 years. And this one's purpose-built too.
Yeah, and of course it's not finished by any means. Make a big difference when the church is built.
Part of sustainability, just doing things when you can.
Yes.
Not thinking it's all got to be done tomorrow, and not rushing it. It's just the realistics of the economics as well, but living within one's means and doing things as one can.
Knowing too that we can't have everything at once.
No, that's the lesson for sustainability.
They like to have everything now. It's immediate result, but it's part of our life to be patient, to wait. Waiting is a very important part of life.
Well, on those very wise words, thank you very much for inviting me in.
Yeah, it's been great fun.
It's been really interesting, and I'd just like to wish you both and the whole community here all the very best for the years ahead and the developments that happen. It's been great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure meeting.
We should just say, I suppose, that we've had an enormously warm welcome
Oh, absolutely.
from the local
the area
people.
and the village and the
absolutely.
people.
That's really helped.